So let's talk about this brand new smartphone that is about to launch, because this brand new smartphone is not no ordinary smartphone. This smartphone is going to be called the ZTE Action 25G, and there is something very interesting about this smartphone in particular. It's the fact that it is going to be the world's first under-display camera. So the front-facing camera is not going to be visible. It's going to be like fingerprint sensors that are officially under the display, and this is the first smartphone to actually introduce this brand new technology. When I say brand new, I mean it's been out for a couple years now, but the only problem with the implementation was the fact that if you look back a couple years ago when they first were testing out this technology, cameras under the display weren't that good. They were kind of milky, they were kind of grainy, they were kind of blurry. Overall, it just didn't make sense to put cameras under the display of the device when you weren't getting the same quality picture that you were with cameras that were above the actual screen of the device, where it was pretty much visible on top of the screen. But I guess they've been working on this technology for a little while now, and I guess they're confident enough where they can release this in a modern day smartphone and actually sell it in a modern day smartphone. And of course, now looking at smartphones in 2020, obviously this would be the dream scenario. The dream scenario, of course, would be if some company out there on the market decided to put their camera under the display, because obviously we want as much screen as possible on our devices. That's the way the tech industry is moving, of course. More screen means more things we can interact with. We get potentially a bigger screen. We don't get things that interrupt our experience. Like now, a lot of phones mostly do have pretty much an all screen on the front of the device, but there usually is some type of notch or some type of camera cutout on the front of the device that doesn't make it a truly all-screen device on the front. You have some type of interruption, and sometimes that interruption can interrupt what you're doing depending on where the interruption actually takes place. Like for instance, on the iPhone has the most aggressive screen to body ratio when it actually comes to the notch. I know the notch on the iPhones are relatively big, at least if you compare them to what Android has to offer in the Android space. And then, of course, going to the Android side, most companies out there just put a little cutout for the camera, but you can still see the camera, and it is on your display when you're actually using your device. And it, again, depends on where they actually put this camera on the device to where it would be bothering, annoying, or distracting, depending on what you're doing as well. So, of course, again, this would be the dream scenario. I'm actually very interested to see how the pictures are going to be on this device altogether, because I think this is very interesting. I'm assuming they're still going to have more work to do with this type of technology. It's not going to come out and be like super amazing. It's not going to be the best thing technology has ever made. I think there is still going to be some improvements. I don't know, honestly, how this is even going to compare to something like a traditional smartphone with a traditional front-facing camera. For me personally, I was always a fan of motorized cameras on the front of their device that were hidden under the actual body of the smartphone, because for me personally, 9 out of 10 times I'm actually a consumer and a user of smartphones are these devices that have a front-facing camera or a webcam that I actually don't even use. So if they were to remove the front-facing camera altogether, that would honestly be okay with me. But there is still some practicality, and I know a lot of people have to take like video calls, or maybe they take a lot of selfies, or whatever the case may be, and they really need that front-facing camera. And honestly, this would be the dream scenario, to still have the front-facing camera, but to hide it under the display where you couldn't see it at all would be amazing, and that would be awesome. And that means every smartphone manufacturer could make the dream phone. Of course, the dream phone is still having nothing on the front of your device, just pretty much all screen from edge to edge to make it look beautiful, make it look amazing, no distractions and everything like that. And I think everything besides that is pretty much fair game for this brand new smartphone, the ZTE Action 25G. There's nothing else that's really mind-blowing about this smartphone that really makes it stand out from the crowd. It's just another smartphone. Of course, smartphones are still smartphones at the end of the day. It is going to be rocking some nice stuff, I guess. We can talk about specs really quickly. Again, just like the title of the phone says, it is going to be a 5G capable phone. It's also going to have a really big screen, so it's not going to be for everybody. It pretty much has a 7-inch screen, 6.92 inches for the screen size. It's also going to be an OLED screen, so you are going to get those rich colors that do pop off the screen, just like other smartphone manufacturers. It is going to be rocking 4,200 milliamp battery approximately, so you can see you are getting a pretty beefy battery in this thing. You're also going to be getting 32 megapixels from the camera. Again, we'll have to see how the camera actually fares, especially the front-facing camera of this device. Of course, that is going to be a big key factor to why you would buy this device over other devices on the market that are smartphones, because maybe you don't want any distractions and you want the most futuristic smartphone out there. And of course, without a doubt, this is going to be one of the most futuristic smartphones on the market, the ZTE Action 20 5G. And that's really the only thing that really does make this smartphone stand out from the competition, is the fact that, again, it's going to be the world's first under display camera. So the front of the device is not going to have any camera cut out anywhere on the display, so no notches, no camera punch outs. It's going to be very clean. It's just interesting to see how the camera is actually going to perform, because that, of course, is going to be the make it or break it with this smartphone. Because what if this thing comes out and this thing doesn't perform well? Then no one's going to want it. They're going to want another smartphone that they're going to be paying a lot of money for, that does have a good camera on the front, that does perform, honestly. And so that's actually going to be very interesting. Again, the phone is called the ZTE Action 20 5G phone from ZTE. I think this brand doesn't even really exist in America. So if you wanted this phone, it's going to look like you may have to import this phone in certain regions in the world. That's really the only problem. It's not from a big name company like Samsung, LG, Motorola, Google, Apple. Again, it is ZTE. And I know a lot of these companies that aren't like top-end Android manufacturers do like to try a lot of different things for their smartphones, so it's going to be interesting. I guess they wanted to try it before other companies like Samsung or Apple wanted to try this technology, because it is too new, and I guess it makes sense that a lot of companies wouldn't even do this, because it is a little bit risky now. At least when we first saw this technology being developed, it wasn't the greatest technology in the world. So we'll see when this thing is launched or announced on September 1st. Now, the next one is actually about the brand new Apple iMac 27-inch, because they did do a new refresh for the Apple iMac line, and this one is the 27-inch 2020 version that just got announced pretty recently, and they did some pretty nice upgrades for the iMac line. If you're interested in the all-in-one iMac from Apple, the nice thing about this one is the fact that we do have a brand new webcam. The biggest problem with a lot of laptops and a lot of all-in-one desktop computers was the fact that time and time again, every time you got a laptop or an all-in-one computer, the webcams weren't necessarily up to par and up to people's expectations. And it looks like this webcam is actually decent. I wouldn't say it's amazing by any stretch of the imagination. It's not amazing at all. So if you want to do like video recordings on this, I would say you would be pretty disappointed at that. You can still see it's not the best thing in the game by any means, but it's not the worst thing. I am glad that Apple did realize that a lot of people do complain about the webcam quality. Some people may need to use the webcam for certain applications, so it is nice they did improve the webcams at all on this new iMac 27-inch. I guess I understand why so many companies out there don't care about the front-facing camera or the webcam on their laptops. I guess it's due to the fact that they just think that you're going to be using them for things like video calling and things like that. And if you're going to be doing things like video calling or webcamming on them, I guess they are passable and doable, because it's not like you're doing anything super important. As long as you can kind of see someone's face on them, it is a go. But time and time again, I just don't understand why companies don't want to focus on that aspect. You'd want to try to make the best possible camera or a webcam on your laptops or your all-in-one computers, because it is about time that we do get something that is up to par with modern day standards, and they've never been up to modern day standards. But I guess they just assume also a lot of people don't use them in the first place, so they're like, why would we even waste our time and resources trying to focus on the front facing camera or the webcam of our laptops or our all-in-ones? It's just a waste of time, and I can see why, and it does make sense. But it's nice that they at least acknowledged people not liking the webcams on their iMacs, so they're like, let's go ahead and bump up the quality. So you will get some pretty decent quality with this thing. I say decent in quotations because it's just okay. It's still better than it was before, but nothing mind-blowing. But it's nice, at least they did decide to actually upgrade the camera. And then of course you also got those studio quality mics. They always call them studio quality, whether we're talking about the brand new iMac, the iPad Pro, the MacBook Pro 16-inch that came out last year. We're always talking about these studio quality mics because that's what Apple likes to call these mics, studio quality. Are they really studio quality? No, they're not really studio quality, because if you were to go into a normal studio that does studio recordings, of course not. The reason they call them studio quality just means that they capture more frequencies and more sounds, but they don't actually sound better, if that makes sense. But anytime they can improve the audio quality at all with the microphones, that is nice, because that may sometimes only be your only option when it comes to these devices. So it is nice that you do get better microphone support if that's your only microphones you have access to. Of course, I will take it anytime we got new improvements in that. And then one thing with this iMac that I didn't even talk about up to this point is the fact that this new Apple iMac 27-inch is not even a brand new iMac design. They're still using the iMac design they pretty much practically had forever, ever since they released this thing. And honestly, I'm not really a big fan of it. To be honest with you guys, this is the only one tech product I've never actually been a fan of. I just don't like those big, thick bezels. I don't actually like the fact also that at the bottom of the device, you got that big Apple logo, and it's like a big flat panel. I don't know why they don't just push the screen out all the way to the bottom of the actual display, because they have more room, but they like using that big metal Apple bar at the bottom of the actual display. And again, I was just never a big fan of this. I understand why they didn't actually update the design of this one specifically. The reason they didn't upgrade the design of this latest Apple iMac 27-inch is due to the fact that it's still running it's still running the Intel Core processors. And since it's still running the Intel Core processors, of course, that does mean that they didn't want to give it a brand new overhaul and a brand new redesign, because what they're purposely trying to do is, I'm pretty sure they're pretty much trying to wait until they make their own processors. And once they put their own processors into things like their new MacBooks and their new iMacs, of course, then I really do think alongside the brand new processors that they're going to be using, that's when they'll push out the brand new design to their iMac line. And that's when I really do think we'll get this amazing design that we've been seeing in renders and in photos. And that's the time I would personally buy an iMac for myself, because I personally like that design altogether. And that's something I've always liked. The nice thing about the iMac, unlike the MacBook Pro line, is they never really skimped on ports here. You get a lot of ports for your money, and you do get a lot for your money. Now, who is this device actually for, and who is the brand new Apple iMac 27-inch for? I think it's for pretty much anybody, honestly. I know a lot of you may be asking the question, should you buy this brand new iMac right now because it is running Intel Core processors, or should you wait until Apple releases their own processors for all their Macs? Honestly, I don't think there is no time to wait, because let's be honest with you guys. I know a lot of people like waiting for the next hottest thing in the tech industry, and honestly, I just think you should pull the trigger on a device. If your wallet can afford it and you need a brand new computer, just pull the trigger. It's not like you're getting something that's outdated. You're clearly not getting something that's outdated. At the time of this recording, if you were to pick this up, you would be getting a sweet rig. And on top of that, even let's say a year or two from now, they do release their brand new Mac computers with their own silicon chip. Let's face it, these things are still going to perform very well. What makes them different from other computers that you do buy, like 4 or 5 years ago, they're still being supported and they're still doing just fine. So it's not like this thing's just immediately going to disappear and not have support when the brand new iMacs come out with Apple's own silicone. So that's what I usually always like to tell people. No matter what, if you need a brand new product today, just buy it. Most likely you'll be happy. The performance is there, and even if you did buy the brand new Macs with Apple's own chipsets, let's face it, those ones would be outdated too, and they would always keep releasing brand new tech products each and every year. So it's like there is no better time to wait. Don't always wait for the latest and greatest thing from a company. I would only say wait for a product if you know, for instance, it's going to be coming out in the next couple of months. If something that you were planning on buying, like for instance a brand new smartphone, but you already are at that stage where they're going to be releasing a brand new one in the next coming months, then yeah, go ahead and wait. But you do have to keep in mind as well, those brand new iMacs with Apple's new silicon in it's not going to be coming anytime soon. It's not like when you buy this computer, it'll just come like in a couple months. Apparently, those computers are at least a year or 2 years away. We honestly don't know when they're actually going to be releasing those computers. So what I'm basically saying is just buy this computer. You'll be happy with this computer. And overall, it looks like a pretty good computer. It's just kind of annoying also that Apple did decide to release this computer, but they didn't actually do anything with this computer. Still the same design and everything like that. I guess there are minimal improvements. You do get a faster chipsets, of course. You do get brand new webcam, brand new mics, and things like that. But it is kind of a shame that you are getting a outdated design. I guess if you already have an old iMac and you're trying to answer the question, should you throw that iMac out and buy this iMac or upgrade it? Honestly, I don't think you should upgrade it. If it's still running just fine for you and you can do the task that you want it to do, obviously don't actually upgrade to this, because again, you're still getting that same design. I would then purposely wait until they release their brand new iMacs with their own chipsets in it and a brand new updated design for the future. But if you haven't had one in a while and maybe you need one, or yours broke or whatever, then yeah, go ahead and pull the trigger. You won't be disappointed with this iMac. Now, the next one is going to be about the iPhone 12, because we got more rumors and speculations on the upcoming iPhone 12. It's interesting that the iPhone 12 is literally right around the corner. It's going to be announced next month and maybe shipped out in October, and all these rumors and speculations will be laid to rest. Of course, we already know the design of this thing, so most likely the design of this thing is going to be what everyone's been speculating and rumored already, because those things get leaked ahead of time. But another thing that we're not too sure of, we're not too sure if this thing's actually going to be getting 5G connectivity. And according to these brand new rumors and speculations, it looks like the brand new iPhone 12 is going to be getting 5G. Now, which iPhone 12s are going to be getting 5G? Honestly, anything's up in the air at this point, because we honestly don't know which iPhone 12s are going to be getting 5G. It could be every single iPhone 12 getting 5G, or it could just be the top end of the line getting iPhone 5G. I know nowadays when we look at 5G technology and when we look at smartphones in 2020, usually the smartphones that get 5G connectivity are going to be the top of the line ones. You look at something like Samsung, for instance, and when you look at their smartphone line, usually only the premium one gets the 5G connectivity, and the cheaper ones in their lineup usually don't get 5G. Of course, that'll all change in the near future when 5G becomes more popular. When everyone's using 5G, then every phone obviously will get 5G. But since 5G is just such a new technology, they only like putting it in the highest end phone. They want to make sure only certain people get access to it, which I guess it's not really a bad thing per se, just due to the fact that 5G is not everywhere, not every carrier has it, and even if you do get 5G, a lot of times 5G connectivity is all over the place, so it's not good anyway. So it's like, who cares? But I understand why you would want 5G in 2020, just to say you have a phone that is future-proofed, because a lot of times a lot of people buy these phones and they don't upgrade their phone for 3, 4, 5 years, and by that time we should have 5G, I would assume, by then. So it is nice device anytime you can future-proof yourself with brand new technology, when most people, or a lot of people anyway, like holding on to their technology as long as possible. Honestly, which iPhones do I think out of the brand new iPhone lines are actually going to be getting 5G? Well, I actually think that they could do multiple ones, believe it or not. One reason I believe they could be doing multiple iPhones with 5G is if you look at Apple and you look at the iPhone 12 still has that notch in it. Sure, they have a brand new design, at least from the body, but that notch is still there. And this is 2020 after all. And if you look at 2020 has not been looking good for a lot of people's wallets. And since it's not looking good for a lot of people's wallets, they want to have an incentive for people to actually upgrade their phone or get a brand new one. And I think a big key factor of a lot of people upgrading to the iPhone 12s would be 5G connectivity. Sure, it's not that big a deal, but just the fact that they would have it, if they could have it in their iPhone 12 line, I think really does play a big key. I think it really does play a key into how many people would be buying this thing, and it would give people a reason to actually buy it. So that's why I can see all their phones actually getting this. But then on the other hand, I can see Apple saying, no, we won't give 5G connectivity to every single iPhone that we currently have in the iPhone 12 line. We'll just give it to the top end because not everyone needs 5G, and we want to give also an incentive for people to buy the highest end model. Only the highest end model gets 5G connectivity, and it would turn some heads, and it would be pretty interesting if they did a 5G model of the iPhone 12, just because in some technologies, Apple's always late to the game. I can honestly actually see them not even putting 5G into the iPhone 12, as crazy as that sounds, just because they could be thinking to themselves, well, 5G is nice and all, but 5G is not really relevant in 2020, and that is true. 5G is not really relevant in 2020, but again, like I said before, if they put 5G in these phones, it would give an incentive for people to actually upgrade to the iPhone 12 just to know they are future-proofed, and Apple could say they have one more feature over some of the competition, because if you look at smartphones in 2020, not every smartphone has 5G connectivity. Only certain smartphones have 5G connectivity, and that's also including the iPhones. No iPhones to date have 5G connectivity. Again, in 2020, it's not really a big deal, and it's not something you lose sleep over because it's not even relevant in 2020. Just a nice little bonus as we speak. But of course, as time goes on, 5G will become more relevant. It'll become more mainstream, and everybody will be using 5G. And another reason why they might actually put 5G in their iPhone 12 is because they might want to demo that technology specifically, because I honestly don't think there's been any company out there that has a 5G phone that really shows us why 5G is relevant, why 5G needs to exist. And Apple could come on stage and be like, hey, listen folks, we're going to make a 5G phone, and we're going to show you why you need to buy 5G today. They might show some crazy like 4K video or a game that can only be run on 5G connectivity, and it has to be ran like that. And then also that would be good for the industry, because if you think about it, when you look at the industry as a whole, usually Apple does kind of set the bar in certain aspects, because usually whatever Apple does, a lot of the leading smartphone brands do like to copy Apple, and they're like, yeah, we have to do what Apple does because it's the standards in the tech industry. So that could push 5G. If Apple pushes 5G out to the iPhone 12, other manufacturers might take 5G more seriously. So we'll have to wait and see how this actually plays out as we speak when it comes to 5G. Also, another thing, I guess, bad about 5G would actually be the fact that you do have to pay an additional cost in 2020 for 5G connectivity if your city supports 5G connectivity, which is kind of a shame, but it is what it is. Now, the next one for today is actually about the Microsoft Surface Duo, because the Microsoft Surface Duo is officially going to be coming out relatively soon. I think next month you can pre-order the phone. Correct me if I'm wrong, and it looks like a very interesting device. They are making a dual screen device here, and it's not going to be like a traditional folding phone, because we do have a lot of traditional folding phones on the market, whether we're talking about Samsung, whether we're talking about things like Motorola and things like that. So those phones do exist, but we don't have a lot of dual screen phones here. And this is not the first time we've had a dual screen phone. I know LG for a while likes playing with dual screen devices, and this is no exception here. This is another dual screen phone. I'm actually up in the air about this, and I'm a person that's open to any new technologies, and I like companies actually trying new things, because when companies try new things, that might mean the way that we use technology might be better, might be smarter. Overall, it might be just different in general. And I'm all for this brand new Microsoft Surface Duo. I actually think it's a really good dual folding a dual screen device. Now, they did claim this is going to be the smallest or the thinnest Surface available, and that does make sense, because this thing does have a hinge. If you ever use something like a traditional laptop or maybe a Nintendo DS or 3DS with that hinge, and then that hinge pretty much goes down the middle of the device, and then you can open it and close it just like a laptop. The nice thing about this device having two displays rather than one display that folds would be the fact that you wouldn't have anything to interrupt your experience, because there wouldn't be like a crease in your display. Each display would be independent, so you would get two full screens, and these screens do look relatively big. The nice thing about this device is when you open it, you can actually fold the other display underneath the other one. So that pretty much means you can actually use it as a traditional smartphone if you wanted to use it as a traditional smartphone. Another nice thing I love about this device is I really love the UI here. It looks like Microsoft is actually taking cues from Windows and Android, and it's kind of like playing with them. It is actually pretty interesting in 2020. Microsoft is actually partnering up with a lot of different people in the tech industry. They don't need to always make their own software here, and that is actually pretty interesting. You guys remember Windows Mobile. Some of you may not remember Windows Mobile, because Windows Mobile, the only downside to Windows Mobile was the fact that nobody wanted to support Windows Mobile. So when it came to the app support for Windows Mobile was very lackluster, and it pretty much didn't have anything to offer. And that's why pretty much nobody bought Windows Mobile, because the experience just wasn't great. When your favorite application's not on Windows Mobile, how can you really use it? So I guess I am actually really glad that Microsoft is realizing there's no point of them to make a brand new operating system when there's already an established operating system out there that is open source and open to everybody. It's called Android, so you might as well just put your own skin on top of Android, like a lot of manufacturers do. A lot of manufacturers in the Android market space, of course, like to take their operating system and then put it on top of Android, and you pretty much have a different version of Android with a lot of different customization aspects, which is nice. And that's something that is nice about Android. The open-ended and open source of Android is just so nice, and this device looks like a very nice device, and it really does show you why you would actually want two displays here. Of course, obviously, the biggest benefit of having two displays here would be the fact that you would get true multitasking. You can have one app open on one display and one app open on another display, and when you combine those two displays, of course, that means this would be a powerhouse for multitasking if you need to do a lot of multitasking applications. This actually looks like it could be a perfect device for me, because a lot of times on your average smartphone, the display is not big enough when you do things like split view with a lot of these Android phones. Sure, a 7-inch display on a lot of the brand new smartphones seem really big, but just the aspect ratio of these devices still mean you do get a relatively small screen for true multitasking, and this is going to be the best implementation for people who do real multitasking and you need to have two apps open at the same time. This would be a dream come true. Now, the only bad thing about this Microsoft Surface Duo phone is the fact that this thing is pretty pricey. I think it's coming in at around $1,300. So this thing's not going to be for everybody. It's only going to be for certain people out there in the industry, unfortunately. And that's really going to be a big key factor to why a lot of people don't buy this thing. Same thing with a lot of foldable phones. The one thing that kills off foldable phones is not the implementation. It's really due to the fact that these foldable phones actually are so expensive. I guess with any type of new technology, it's always going to be the price that really does kill these things off. And that's really unfortunate because I think this one is pretty nice and pretty premium. I love the design of this thing. I love the functionality. I think it could be useful. But at that $1,300 price point, who is this really for? You're better off buying a traditional smartphone, which you can even get less than $1,300. If these things do come down in price, then it would actually be really awesome. Overall, this looks like a very awesome device from Microsoft, and we'll have to wait and see when this thing actually comes out, if this thing's going to be practical or not. Now, the last one for today's episode is actually going to be about the brand new Samsung Galaxy Note 20. It looks like the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 and just, I guess, phones in general. I wanted to make that clear. Phones in general, I guess, in 2020 aren't selling all too well. At least the premium smartphones close to $1,000 or above $1,000, they're just really not selling. And of course, that shouldn't really surprise you. And honestly, I'm not too surprised about that as well. But it's just interesting, even though sometimes it's already proven that these smartphones that are up near $1,000 or over $1,000, it's just interesting that these companies still try to push these phones. And honestly, I don't understand why, since time and time again, it does show that most of the people out there don't want to spend that much money for a smartphone at the end of the day. They want to spend around $500, $600, $400 for the smartphone. They want a mid-range smartphone that is priced fairly well with fairly good specs and fairly good design, and they want to buy those phones because it saves them money at the end of the day. And like I always tell people, what are you getting for your grand compared to something that's half the price of a premium smartphone, when you also have to take in consideration time and time again, you're only keeping these phones for tops maybe 4 to 5 years, and then after that you're gonna buy a brand new smartphone. So it's kind of like you wasted your money buying the cream of the crop that year that premium smartphone came out for that year. It just honestly doesn't make sense. But I guess this year was one of the worst years for premium smartphone brands and premium smartphones that came out around $1,000 or above $1,000. But that makes sense. The economy is hurting. The pandemic screwed up everything. So with a combination of phones being very expensive and the economy really struggling right now, it really does make sense to why smartphones aren't selling all that well. And not just the fact that a pandemic is hurting the economy and people aren't buying these premium phones are in general not really buying anything high ticket price. It's not just smartphones in 2020. It's pretty much just anything that is high price they're not really buying. I guess another thing that really doesn't help this year specifically is the fact that 2020 we've had some amazing mid-range smartphones, and smartphones at the mid-range price are doing extremely well, and they're getting extremely good as well. This year we've had phones like the brand new Pixel 4a that just came out, and that one is pretty much the cream of the crop when it comes to cheap smartphones that are reliable and amazing. That one only costs $350 for the Pixel 4a, and then we got other phones as well, like the brand new iPhone SE. The iPhone SE 2 came out this year, which is only $400, and that is a premium iPhone. Sure, it doesn't have the same features as like the iPhone 11 Pro Max, but just the fact that it does give you a pretty solid phone for $400, it's a pretty easy buy for a lot of people, especially if you don't have a smartphone or your smartphone's getting old, outdated, or it's on its last legs. That is a good smartphone. And then of course we had OnePlus, which we didn't think OnePlus would go back to their roots, but OnePlus did go back to the roots, and they gave us the OnePlus Nord, and the OnePlus Nord is a fantastic smartphone for what it is. So you can see in general we've had some pretty amazing budget smartphones this year that have came out. They refreshed them, and it makes sense. A lot of people are looking towards those options if they need a smartphone in the time that we live. So it really does make sense. I wonder how long we're going to get these $1,000 phones and phones that are higher than $1,000. I really do think that the trend is going to continue to keep going with these high-end smartphones that are priced extremely high. It always seems from year to year they like making these phones more and more expensive. You look at the recent Note 20 Ultra, and the Note 20 Ultra I think costs $1,300, and I think that's literally the most expensive foldable phone out there on the market when it comes to tech products and smartphone technology, and it's just very interesting that I wouldn't be surprised if one year we got phones reaching about $1,500, half of $2,000, which is absolutely insane. What are you getting with your money at $1,300 for the Note 20 Ultra? Sure, you are getting the cream of the crop, but how much better is it than a mid-range smartphone? Can you do everything on a mid-range smartphone that you can do on a high-end smartphone? Honestly, that question needs to be thrown out there, because time and time again, it's just interesting that these phones keep getting more expensive, and it just proves that people aren't interested in these smartphones that are extremely expensive now, especially in the time that we live in. It just doesn't help the situation. And yeah, that's pretty much gonna do it for this episode. Anyway,